Hi everyone, welcome back to Olive Street Designs. I'm Shireen, and as a furniture refinisher, I get so many questions about what tools do I need to get started. And so I thought it would be a fun idea to go ahead and put together a two-part series. The first one being the 10 essentials that everybody needs to start refinishing furniture. Now these will be just the basic tools. So when you walk into the hardware store, you can pick up a few things. They're not super pricey, they're easy to use, just to get started. And then I'm gonna have a second part to the video, another video that I'll post separately. And that one will go into maybe you wanna level up. You've been doing this for a little while. You've kind of got the feel for it. You've gotten your feet wet with a few pieces, and now we're ready to step the game up a little bit. And maybe now you need to start looking at different tools so you can be adding legs or build a base or stripping pieces and doing some staining. This will be a two-part series. So let's get started with the first part, which is 10 essential tools you need to start refinishing furniture. Okay, first up is the tool that's going to become your best friend. You will use this on nearly every piece that you're going to refinish, and that is your Orbital Sander. Now there's lots of different options when you buy a sander. This is a random orbital. I like the option of having multiple speeds. This is really simple. You can dial your speed down when you're getting next to delicate areas like the corners or on veneer. So it's good to have that option. This is for dust collection. Mine is corded. Now you certainly can get a cordless one, but I never wanted the restraint of my battery dying when I'm right in the middle of a project. And usually the batteries only last so long, and sometimes you have to go get new ones, and the price of a battery is almost more than the tool. So I would say just get one that's corded. There are places for cordless tools. Some of our cordless tools are great to have. As far as the sanding goes, sometimes you can be sanding for a really long time. You don't want to have to pause and keep charging your battery, because there are projects where you decide I'm going to strip the top and I'm going to sand the whole thing, and I'll be sanding for an hour, but my battery only lasts for 30 minutes. So I think getting one that is corded is a great idea. So lots of different options. I have a DeWalt. There are so many brands out there. I think this particular sander right now on Amazon is somewhere between $60 to $75. A great option, mid-range pricing. All right, the next thing on the list is good sandpaper. So, we're staying in the sanding arena right now because we do a lot of sanding as refinishers. So get some good sandpaper. Certainly to start out, you can just grab some at Home Depot or wherever, but you'll find that as you use it more and get into different types of sandpapers, some are definitely better than others, but there's lots of different types. Now, this one is called Serious Grit. This happens to be one of my favorite brands of sandpaper, but you'll find that 120 or 120 grit is probably the most common. So this is 120 grit sandpaper. These nets, this is like, it looks like a screen. This is also 120 grit. So they have both different uses. I use this when I'm stripping things because I feel like it just has more bite and it gets through a surface better, and this one more for smoothing things out. But it's good to have a variety of sandpapers. I would probably start with 120, 180, 220, and that should probably get you through most everything. And then when these start getting worn out, don't toss them. What I use them for then is hand sanding. And the thing that I think is super helpful and I would recommend everyone to have are these little contour sanding blocks. Because we do a lot of hand sanding and we need to get into the little crevices and those crumb catchers that go along there, all kinds of places. These little blocks come in all different shapes and sizes. And what you do, and you take your worn out sandpaper, I'll use a new one here, but you would find whichever block fits into the groove of whatever it is you're trying to sand, and you wrap the sandpaper around it, and now you have something to hold on to. Rather than trying to fit this into something, you've got a good grip on something that's got a little substance to it to get your sandpaper in there and get going with it. So this is super helpful. I use these regularly. I wouldn't say on every single piece, but boy, when I need to hand sand something, I always grab these. One set comes in usually 12 or 15 different styles. I have probably used every single one of these at some point or another. Definitely worth the investment. These are usually a whole set, about $15. Now when you buy these, these are for sale on Amazon now as well. You can get variety packs. I think that's a great way to start because you'll get a little bit of everything. And I think the variety packs start at like 80, 120, 150, 180, 220, and that will be everything that you could need. And then as you use a certain grit so much that you run out of that particular grit, now you can go get that one. But you will have at least experienced all of the different grits so that you know which ones you like, which ones you use, and where and how you would use it. But you'll find that 120 grit is the one you're probably going to use the most and the one that you need to have more of those on hand. Okay, next on the list, wood filler. It is so common that we have to fill all kinds of dents and dings, little nail holes, all kinds of stuff. So getting a good wood filler is very important. Now, there's a big variety, and this is just a sampling of all the different types of wood fillers. I would start with the basics. I mean, we have so many options available to us now, but when you're first starting out, we just need a couple of them. So I would probably recommend getting something like this. It is in a tube, so it doesn't dry out so much because you may not be using a ton of it. It's stainable, super easy to use. This is probably my favorite just plain wood filler. This is by DAP, and it's the premium wood filler. I like this one the most of all the wood fillers because I feel like it's stronger before we move up into the epoxy style wood fillers. So when you're first starting out, I think either of these are great options, and you'll spend about $10 on them. They last a really long time. These are water-based, so you don't have to worry about them drying out and becoming bricks, and then you can never use them again. When, especially these that's in the container, when it does start to dry out and get a little hard, you just put a little water in there and stir it up, and it kind of reconstitutes it so you can keep using it. These last me for a very long time because I really pay attention to them and do add water when I need to, but this is a great one. Okay, the next thing on the list, wood glue. There are so many times where you pick up a dresser and you think it's in great shape. You get it home and there's a broken drawer guide underneath. It's just cracked. There's a leg that has a crack in it. There's dovetails that are totally moving around. There's just things that we have to repair. Wood glue does amazing for us when we're repairing these things. And there are several kinds. These are two of my favorites. This is a Gorilla wood glue, and then Type Bond, of course. This is the GOAT. This is the go-to for everything. Really good wood glue. I mean, there's so many options. We got liquid nails, and but I think when you're starting out, this would be a great option. Again, you're gonna spend about $10, and this is gonna last you a very long time as long as you always close the lid. Now, when you add glue to something, this is a thin consistency, so it's not like that super thick, it's gonna stick it together. You're going to put the glue in there, and with that thin consistency, it does allow you to get that wood really tight, but now you need something to hold it in place. So along with the wood glue, you're going to need some clamps. Now there's so many types. There's ratchet style. There's these, which I use these probably more than anything. These are just pressure clamps. They're great for when I'm doing edges of things and have veneer and stuff. I can just put a clamp on it, put a piece of wood underneath it, clamp it. Those are great. These, I find these all the time at Home Depot on sale for $1 a piece. Pretty affordable. Now we have some others that we need to get into that are these clamps. And I think if you could only buy one, you'd buy a long one. And the reason is sometimes we have those drawers where the dovetails are mobile, they're moving around, and we need to clamp it, we need to glue it and then clamp it, and we need something that's going to reach from one end of a drawer to another, so a good long clamp. So I would say for clamps, again, glue. Clamps, I'd probably get a few of these and 2 of these. So you can find those, of course they sell them on Amazon, but usually you can find them at Home Depot, Lowe's, somewhere like that. Okay, tool number 5. These are things that you may already have, but you might want to tweak it a little bit. So screwdrivers, one of each kind, flatheads, Phillips. You think, who uses flatheads? Vintage furniture usually has flathead screws, and they are annoying. But we have to get them off. So usually once I get them off, unless I'm doing something that's an antique and I want to put the original screws back on, I will then switch them out to a Phillips. But You may already have these at home. Make sure you have that. I like this little shorty. And the reason is because the wood drawer guides that the drawer is going to slide on usually has a screw on each end, and there isn't a lot of room to get this full screwdriver in there and this little bitty one, because sometimes we have short little drawers. This little one is just the right size to get in there. Now there are certainly right angle, like contra angles for the drills and things that you can use. I love this little short one, so I love that. Okay, you can step up to a cordless screwdriver. This is my favorite one. I use this if you watch my videos, in almost every video. And the reason you might want to step up to this, if you already have these at home and you're going to be able to get another tool, a cordless screwdriver is great. Because if you're working on something that is like a 6 or 8 drawer dresser and there's 2 pulls on each, sitting behind or removing the screw of every single one, I mean, when you can just be taking it off, it's such a huge time saver. This particular one comes with all the different bits. So it's a great little kit, and it comes with all the different bits. Now with that, of course, you can also use your drill. I think the drill for doing hardware installation or even removal a lot of times is a little bit too aggressive. And so if these are your only 2 options, that's great. But this would probably not be for hardware. It'd be for so many other things that we do. Certainly if you start to get where you can change the hardware placement on a dresser, you'll want to get some drill bits, because now you'll need to fill in holes and then re-drill new holes. And when you get a new drill, a lot of times they do actually come with a bunch of drill bits. The one that I use most commonly is this one, the 3/16. So these are a great option to have too. And I would say at a minimum, the drill and a screwdriver, but if you can do the cordless screwdriver, it'll save you a lot of time. I think this is a good investment. All right, the next thing on the list is painter's tape. Painter's tape, I mean, you would think, why is this even on the list? It's such a simple, no-brainer thing, but it's super important. So that's why I added it to the list. Painter's tape is one of those things that I use, again, probably on every single project, because am I taping off dovetails so they don't get overspray on them? Am I taping off the insides where I want nice, clean, straight lines around the inside of the cabinet? Did I stain the top and now I don't want to get any paint on my stain, so I'm going to be taping that off, and of course using some plastic or something to mask everything else off. Super useful. What kind of painter's tape do you get? There's like so many varieties. Well, this is one of those things that I wouldn't skimp on. I would say there's several different kinds. Of course, this is the typical blue. It's actually called blue tape, blue painter's tape. There's delicate surface tape, and the only time I would ever get this is if you're taping off something you just painted, because although it does stick, it's a little more delicate. There's some for clean lines. Duct tape is great. Duck, D-U-C-K, not duct, D-U-C-T. That is far too aggressive. If you're going to be doing little details where you're going to be painting or gilding maybe and doing some tiny little lines around your drawers, there's super thin tape. And this would be something that you would just use 2 pieces of tape so you could paint in between and make some kind of tiny little line. But overall, which tape do you need? I think this 1.5" tape blue is going to be your best bet, and spend the time, just get a couple rolls of that. You'll acquire more tapes as you do more things, but that's going to be your best bet. 1.5" blue tape. Okay, next up, drop cloths. Drop cloths and also plastic sheeting. So totally different uses, but I would kind of put them in the same category because they're all just sort of protecting surfaces. Now, I have canvas drop cloths. If you see my videos, you see that I set up a big tent. I have these canvas drop cloths on the bottom of it, because I work a lot of times in my driveway. And when I'm not working, I don't want my driveway to look like, yeah, she paints in her driveway. So I try to protect everything. So these are not terribly expensive, and you'll use them over and over and over. They just last a really long time, but this is great protection for your workspace. Now, the other thing that goes with this is plastic sheeting, all different kinds. This folds out to be a huge plastic surface. great for when you're staining, when you're stripping, just to put this on the surface so that anything that drops on your flooring isn't going to be stained or stripped unnecessarily. And then this, of course, is plastic sheeting that has tape already on it. This is fantastic when you have stripped the top of a piece and you're going to need to mask it off so that now you can paint the rest of it. Or you've painted everything, you know, vice versa. If you've already painted first or stained first, either way, you're going to be masking off one surface or the other, and you want to use something that's going to protect that surface. So this is great, a little more expensive than just taping yourself and using plastic, but this has it all in one, and this tape goes along the surface, and then this unfolds to give you the protection there, the protective layer. So that's a great one, of course, the plastic. And then this is good old Saran wrap. And I use this in the shop most of the time over these because I just like to do tape on my edges. I do a few passes with cheap, this is Costco Saran wrap, and then a little tape down the middle, and very inexpensive. This roll was huge. I've been using this same roll probably for 2 years. So it lasts a really long time and less expensive. So Saran wrap and tape, I think that is a great option, but you can see that you have a lot of options. So, you know, you kind of have to go with what you're familiar with or what you're comfortable with, and then whatever obviously matches your budget. So, okay, next up on the list, good quality paintbrushes. So there's a time and place for every type of brush, but we want to go with, okay, I'm just getting into it. I don't know, there's 1,000 brushes. Which kind do I use? Well, let me go through the most common and the ones that you probably need the most. Now, I think the one that you're going to use the most is an angled brush. This one's a little big. I probably would start with more of an 1.5 to 2 inch. This is a 2.5, but synthetic bristle. And they are going to give you the smoothest, especially for doing things like top coats and stuff, but for painting overall, I love a good, if you only had one brush, it would probably be an angled synthetic brush. Now, with that said, my favorite brush when I am painting dressers by hand, and I did that for several years before I ever even thought of a sprayer. I thought, I don't want to do a sprayer. I enjoy this process. It's so therapeutic for me doing the brushing. And then one day you start spraying and you never look back. But when you're getting started, I think it's really important to go through that process of learning how to paint by hand. This is one of my all-time favorite brushes. It's an oval. This is an 1.5 inch, oval brush. I love this because you can load a lot on it, but the way that it goes across a surface, to me, just gave me the best results. Now, this is not a great brush for top coats, but when you're painting, priming, painting, I love this 1.5 inch oval. A great brush. So lots of different varieties of ovals. I've had several different brands, but you know, I find that most of them are all similar-ish. I think Zebra, which is one that you can get at Lowe's and Home Depot, I think they just came out with one. I haven't tried it. I think they've got, I'm just thinking of easy to obtain 1.5 inch oval from there. This is a little detail brush. Now, unnecessary for a lot of things because you're not painting a dresser with this brush. But what you are doing are touch-ups. So, you know, when you're painting and you've taken all the drawers out and you're going to just do the little sides of the cabinet in there, great little brush to do that along the edges. So I like to have a little detail brush just for those little things. I use these. These are foam brushes. I use these all the time. Now, if I have stripped a piece and I've stained it and I'm just going to put top coat on by hand, this is my go-to. There's a lot of different kinds, but this poly brush, and I use a poly, the brand is actually Jen, but it's a poly brush. This is my favorite. I think it actually says on here, poly brush, that's the brand. These are high quality. They have a feature inside. They're, again, not all created equal. So this one actually has a piece of plastic that runs inside here that helps it have some more stability. So not all poly brushes are created equal, but the poly brush brand is, to me, the best one. But I use these if I'm doing, say I've sprayed a piece and I need to touch up around the edges of the drawers, always have a poly brush in my hand. If I'm doing top coat, as I mentioned, using a poly brush. I probably could paint an entire dresser with this, although I haven't done it yet. Maybe I should do that. But a good option. Now, a lot of people use rollers. I can't say that I've ever been one that used rollers for things. I know a lot of people use rollers for primer, maybe even for paint. It just, for me, I always liked brushing until I started spraying. I always did it with this brush. But rollers are great, and I love this tiny little one for doing the tops of the drawers, but it also gets into those areas on the front of a drawer that are kind of beveled. That fits right into that little space there. This is the cutest thing, but a good foam roller. Now, if you wanted to use a roller, you just get one of these that's bigger, but they just come like this, and these are you can toss these. They go right on here. A lot of times they come with a little tray and with disposable inserts, so you can toss those. But there's little kits, but getting a good foam roller is super helpful if that's the route that you want to go. Again, I think if you had this, an 1.5 inch angled, and a poly brush, you'd be set. I don't think you'd need much else, but if you could only have one, it'd be one of these. Spend the money on these. Okay, the next thing is safety gear. Now, maybe safety gear should have been first because we say safety first, right? But it did make it on my list, and it's super important. We don't want to be breathing in all of this stuff that we're either putting on or taking off of our dressers, but not all masks are created equal. So I know that a lot of people wear N95s, and I would say you can do those for some things. But when you're really getting into doing a lot of stripping, or if you're spraying, or you're using chemical strippers, you definitely want to, step that up and do something with a little more protection for you. So there are a couple of different masks. What's different about these? Now, the mask itself, they're exactly the same. These two are no different. So I just happen to have two. And the reason I have two is because this one that has the fabric cartridges that go on the side is the one that I wear for sanding. It has the protection level that will get the particulate that is typically something you get while you're sanding. The cartridges are replaceable, and these are actually even washable. You can wash them a couple times. This one I will wear most of the time, and it's super comfortable. You adjust it. This goes over your head. This one goes around your neck, but adjust it so that it fits. And this part should make a tight seal around your face so that when you take it off, you have an outline of it. But if you're smelling anything that you're doing, you're not getting enough protection. So, but for sanding, this is my go-to. This is a 3M 2091 are the cartridges that go on here. Now, the next step up from that is one that protects you from vapors. The next level here, now you could just do this and bypass this and use this as your only mask. And the reason I don't do that is, one, these cartridges are more expensive, but also because this one is heavier. I don't necessarily want to wear this one all day long. I could stand in this for hours and hours because it's so light. And yes, although it's suction to my face, it's easy to breathe through, super light. This one, still easy to breathe through. I mean, you would think that if you're wearing a mask, it's not as easy to breathe through, but you can breathe just fine with it. But this one I find is a bit heavier. However, I want this protection. I want this protection when I'm using any kind of chemical, strippers, primer, paint, top coat. Whenever I'm in the tent and I'm spraying especially, I am wearing this one. Okay, so if you're going to use this one, which is recommended for all of the chemicals, if you're going to do anything with chemicals, to wear this one, because this one has the protection for P100. Those are the cartridges for that. The other thing in this segment that I wanted to talk about, since we're talking about safety, protection, are gloves. These gloves are thicker, a little bit thicker, but they're meant for working with, oil-based stains. I try to always have gloves on if I'm working with any actual chemicals like acetone, lacquer thinner. You know, acetone's great for a few minutes. If you get your nails done and taking your nail polish off, it's acetone. But we're usually working with a lot of acetone and for extended periods of time as we're, working on our furniture and stuff. And it just dries your skin out, and it's not great. So pick yourself up some gloves too. Make sure to have those on hand. Okay, last but certainly not least, and actually probably should have been first, is cleaning supplies. So it's so important when we get a new piece of furniture into our inventory, whether it's client owned or it's something we just picked up on Marketplace that we're going to refinish and sell. It's so important that we clean it. It's probably one of the most common questions that I actually get is, why do you bother to clean a piece before you're getting ready to refinish it? You're going to essentially make it into a mess again. Well, there's good reason for that, because if you think about a piece that's been in somebody's house, and maybe this is how you even handle your own furniture, is that it's been in your house, it gets dusty, you're usually wiping it off with some kind of, you're using Pledge or you're putting wax on it or something. Most people use some type of cleaning solution or polish. And over the years, now, mind you, some of these pieces that we work on are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they have been polished and waxed and cleaned and over and over and over and over. Plus, we have so many oils and just kind of grime around our house that just piles up on these things. So, with that being said, it is important to clean before you start. And the reason is because if we don't and we just get right in and start sanding, a lot of those products that are on there build up onto our sandpaper. And they make these little clumps of stuff on our sandpaper, and then, especially with the Orbital, it's going around and around and it's making marks, and it will actually damage your piece. And we call those pigtails. A lot of times you'll see them. It's a lot of just buildup and gunk on our sandpaper. And not only are you having to throw out sandpaper, so you're wasting it, but you could be potentially damaging your piece. The other thing that all this stuff does, and all these products that may have been on this piece for so many years, is it can impact adhesion, because most of those products that are used on our pieces for all those years and in our own homes have oil-based products in them. They're waxes and oils and things like that. It's great for keeping furniture looking beautiful, but not great when we're trying to refinish, especially if we're painting. Those products can repel our new products, because most of our new products are water-based. So think about oil and water, they don't mix, and so we want to get all of that stuff off. Okay, that being said, what is it? This is typically what you'll see in my videos I'm using, and I get these questions, what the heck is in your spray bottle? Because my spray bottle was not marked. And it's because this is my go-to cleaner. This is Crud Cutter. It is a cleaner degreaser, but this is a concentrate. And it depends on how you mix it about if it's going to be a cleaner or a degreaser. I tend to go with the degreaser because I do want to get all those things off of my furniture surfaces. And I go with the more concentrated version and use it as a degreaser. So I clean everything, and then I'm either scrubbing it with this, scrubbing it with this, because I like power tools. Either is fine, but you want to get down into the little corners and all the nooks and crannies. Now, most paint companies these days and other, like this is Green Easy, that's a stripper. They also have a cleaner. You can use Simple Green. A lot of people use this. There's no really wrong version, except that some of them can leave a residue behind, and so we've kind of added one more problem to the problem. So use something that is safe to use. With Crud Cutter, I find that I never have a problem with residue being left behind that I have any issue with on my new products. So Crud Cutter is my go-to, and when I'm wiping it off, I usually do use a wet microfiber towel. So, I've done all the things. I've sprayed it on, I've cleaned everything, and then that wet microfiber towel is the last thing, and I wipe everything off, and it's good to go, nice and clean. So it is a super important step, and usually one of the very first steps that we do after we take the hardware off, we clean everything. And I think it's really important to use the right products when you do it. And there it is, my list of the 10 essential things I think you should have to start being a furniture refinisher, even if you're just doing the one project or two things that you want to do for your own, or if you're planning on embarking into this as a business. there are certain things that you really should just have in your toolbox. So I hope that was helpful for you. And if you don't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow along. There'll be all kinds of tips, tricks, and certainly lots of refinishing videos.